Welcome to part two of the series on making local speech and debate competitions matter. This video is all about the role of hype, how to build excitement for local competitions without breaking your budget. So the first thing that we're going to talk about on Hype Day is stages, getting the biggest stages that you can in a very literal sense. You probably think about nationals and think we can never match the grandiosity of NSDA nationals and all the bright spotlights, and you don't have to. But there's lots of ways in which you can make your competitions feel special by providing a bigger and bigger stage. In Wisconsin, we don't necessarily have all of the fancy lights that NSDA has, but the Wisconsin Congress State Tournament was held at the state capitol because we reached out to the state Congress and they were nice enough to let us use their chambers to hold the state Congress tournament. The Wisconsin State Speech Tournament State Festival hosts at UW-Madison and has big stages where students perform in front of large audiences. Uh, that doesn't always work. You might not be able to get something that's that big, but you can always reach out and ask and go to a local city hall and ask if your final rounds of debate can occur there. For example, the Cleveland City Hall has a Cleveland debate series where they have championship level debates that occur. I don't know exactly who judges those debates, but they've had a series of this in the past, and I think it's very exciting and cool to have high school debates occur outside the walls of the traditional school and instead occupy other civic spaces. And I think there's probably an avenue for collaboration with public officials as well, who would be interested at minimum in probably getting a photo op here. On a smaller scale, if you have access to the school, think about what your final rounds could be uh, using in order to make a bigger impact emotionally for your students and give it a bigger feel when they reach a final round, so that maybe the duo finals, instead of being in just another classroom, is instead on a stage in an auditorium. Makes it feel more exciting when you achieve that pinnacle of success, that it's a little bit different. So I think that's something that at minimum you should look at whether that's something, maybe there's an extra cost. And if that's the case, maybe it doesn't make sense. But if you have the ability to use that space, use the biggest spaces that you have available. Other things that we've done in our local league in Sacramento is just like the dumbest, smallest things here is we bought a tablecloth to make sure that we weren't just using some ordinary like plastic table, which we were, but just a black tablecloth on top of it. And we got a banner with our league's logo, very simple logo, but it was $40 to get a nice little banner. And we had that banner and we put it up, and we've been putting it up for all of our award ceremonies, just as like a, hey, we're a real organization sort of thing. And then this interesting thing happened where we would just leave it up at the end of the awards ceremony, and people spontaneously came up to that banner and would start taking photos with that in the backdrop, holding their trophies. And so there was kind of this virtuous cycle of feedback where we have this banner out there and students are just taking photos of it and posting it on Instagram and being very proud that they are part of this organization. And I thought that that was very adorable, and also something that you should absolutely be replicating in your local leagues if you have the means. All right, moving on to some other ways to build hype. More recognition of everyone's efforts, because there's a lot of different ways in which people contribute to this organization. Um, and it's not all just about winning rounds and placing highly in all of these events, because we are working with a zero-sum game here. Every debate winner means there's a debate loser. But what we've done in our league is added two different awards that do not have necessarily losers. These are awards that recognize the ways in which people give back to the community. Either for students, we've created a Spirit Award, which is the Spirit of Speech and Debate Award, community nominated via a Google form at every tournament. Also great for our Instagram feed to talk about how awesome all of these schools are, with a lot of complimentary things, including just recognition of the weird and wonderful things that these students do throughout the course of tournaments. In this case, one of our schools started making balloon animals for all the other participants in the tournament because they're wonderful and very deserving of the Spirit Award that they get. We also have Outstanding Judge Awards, which allow students to nominate judges. They get their ballots to review, and then they just have the opportunity to say, I'd like to nominate this person because they gave me feedback that's really useful, and gives our judges something that they can feel warm and fuzzy about, as well as hopefully make them more likely to return the next time. So it's just continuing that feedback loop to make sure that everybody is recognized for all the hard work that they put into this activity. On publicity, I really think that if there's something I could say about publicity, is that the award ceremony itself is not the end game. The award ceremony is great, but your administrators are probably not there. The people who make decisions about whether the speech and debate team gets additional funding are probably not there. We want them to see the excitement of an award ceremony. We want them to understand all the hard work that the students put in, but really it's our job as speech and debate coaches to be that advocate, to help that school district out, to make it easy to have them see all the things that have been done. So for example, what we've got here on the right hand side is a tournament summary email that I sent out to the administrators of my school. It's just a quick recap. Here's a photo of the team. Here's how we finished relative to other schools in terms of sweepstakes, some of the topics that were discussed. And it's really crazy how quickly the conversation has changed from, no, you can't host a tournament because you would need to do this, and you would need to do this, and you would need to do this, and we'd have to have this 6 months in advance, and we could never possibly do that. And now the conversation is, well, maybe we can reallocate some performing arts funding so that we can get a speech and debate class for you. And I really think that these emails matter a lot. They keep, I've sent probably 10 of these so far, and the constant reminder that we are a team that's out there working very hard, students that are very driven to succeed. I think it's a really, really good thing to keep that on your radar of your administrators. But you're probably thinking that's got to be kind of difficult. Well, think again, because there's this new technology. You've probably never heard of it. It's called generative AI, and it's really, really good at writing copy, just basic factual information where you feed it in some statistical information from Tabroom, and it can spit out some pretty basic summary in a newspaper-like format of how your team did, highlighting the most important or most prestigious achievements first, and then going down the list in terms of, what was the most impressive thing that your students did. It takes less than 5 minutes to generate this. All you need to know is what tournament ID you were at from Tabroom. You pull that from the URL of whatever tournament that you're looking at on Tabroom, and then just put in the name of your school, and then it'll give you a quick summary. You use that as the basis for writing your email. You add in a photo, you add in maybe a couple of quotes, you add in the topics or pieces that they used, and then within a few minutes, you've got something that can be sent out straight to your administrators so that they know how much you've been putting into this team and how successful your students have been. You can do it so that the Monday following a tournament, your administrators have this in their inbox. It's great. Last thing I'll add there is that in previous positions that I had been at before I adopted this mentality of making sure that I am publicizing everything that I do so that I get credit for it, the interactions that I had with administrators were basically, please sign this, please sign this, please email the National Speech and Debate Association telling them that there's a new coach here, please sign this, please approve this, please get this student out of school. And that really doesn't create a good relationship, because at that point you are just an annoying thorn in their side. However, if you can instead flip that relationship so that you're mostly sending them positive things that they can feel good about, then they're going to be able to weather the storm of a couple of things to sign here and there without even thinking about it, because they know that they can trust you because you've been putting in lots of good work. One other trick that I've seen is that if you're writing up these recaps to an administrator audience already, you can also maybe just throw it at a local news organization. And I tried doing this and it worked surprisingly well. So I've been doing this a few times now where I just have the recap from a tournament and I write it up and I send it as a submission to the local newspaper, and they have printed this in the actual newspaper, the words that I wrote directly, and it just gets in the newspaper, and it's very exciting for students and even my friends who don't even follow or have any relationship to the debate team, pointing this out and saying, "Oh, don't you coach that?" and it's kind of cool. So I would say there's minimal downside to doing this as long as you've got releases or permission from students in order to submit this to, a local newspaper. But it's surprising how local news will just take things that you send them nowadays, and it's worth trying to take advantage of that. All right, that's all for this video. Remember, the theme was Get Hype, and the three main takeaways were get big stages for your competition, recognize everyone's efforts, and publicize the great work that your team does. If you do those three things, you're going to build hype. Hope this video was helpful. Remember to tune in next time for part 3 about building community presence of your speech and debate teams.